Hello and welcome, folks. My God, are we already back for another weekly Q&A? It's been a little crazy week over here. I know a lot of you guys, at least what I'm seeing, everybody's posting about crazy gas prices and all that, and I wanted you guys to know, if you were in the mastermind, we have a whole investment document about things you can put your money into that will grow faster than the inflation, so you still come out ahead. It's one of the things I pride myself on here, is that having our people be able to not just make money from the agency, but reinvest it into assets that work for them when they're not. For a lot of years, I did a lot of sales, and you have a roller coaster income in the sense of, like, when you make a lot of sales, then you have fulfillment, and what ends up happening is, even though you may be growing, you don't necessarily like get real wealth accumulation. I've had friends who built $200,000 a month agencies, and then when they get burnt out and they let it go, they end up broke again. So I don't want you guys to be one of them. So if you're interested in that, I've got just a few spots left. Give me a shout out and I will send you some details about it. There's just a little video to watch. There's no sales call or anything like that. As you know, that's not how we roll in. So Derek says, how are performance-based lead generation agencies guaranteeing an ROI or taking a percentage of the sale as an offer and tracking it? Recording calls is great, but can't just the client lie and say we didn't get any sales? What do you guys think about this model? Is there a way to track it so they can't manipulate sales numbers? Ooh, Derek, I'll tell you, this is a very detailed, nuanced topic, and I wanted to save it for the Q&A. So there is two kind of mindsets that most people approach kind of going after clients. One of those is the mindset of like a service provider. That's what the vast majority of people have. And so they approach it like, I'm going to provide a service for you and you're going to pay me based on the results. When you start getting into revenue share and those kind of things, it's really, really important that you have something that is called the investor mindset. And the investor mindset is, as an investor, you generally want to do things where your downside, when you take on a risk, is pretty small and your upside is very high. So I have a mentor who like has a metaphor for like this. Imagine you're playing heads or tails and you're flipping a coin every single time. And every single time that coin lands tails, you lose $10. And every single time it lands heads, you make $1,000. Well, even if that coin has 7 times in a row lost money and you flipped it, you're going to want to keep on flipping. What's up, Hetty? Good to see you, my man. So this is really, really key when you get into revenue share deals, is before you just trust a client and get into this big arrangement, is you're going to want to create a small little test where you can ensure that they are transparent and trustworthy and honest. I'll tell you, it lends itself easier to e-commerce, to online coaches, to online services, better than it does for like brick and mortar. I might charge you $100 for 5 phone calls, knowing that one of those on average will be a sale. Having said that, before you just jump into bed with somebody on a revenue share deal, there's a couple things you want. Firstly, like, it's very, very important that it is a real and established business that has existing flow. Do not do this with beginner businesses. And then again, like, test the waters small. Like, take a few steps in the pool. If it works out, then you can do more, but you don't want to commit to somebody, because that's the most important thing, is transparency and trust. And so you kind of hit on it with that. And so you want to test small for transparency and trust and create a deal where if you have a good revenue share client, like, the upside is huge, but if you're wrong, you lose maybe like a 2 or 3 day campaign. So I'll typically, if I'm doing a revenue share deal, I'll say, let's just launch one little direct mail campaign. I might invest $100 or $200 into it. And for that, I can know in a couple of days whether or not they're a good client. It costs me $100 or $200. And the upside can be sometimes like almost unlimited. I'm working on a revenue share deal with somebody right now that could be worth, and I don't know till I'm done, I could be worth 0, but it also could be worth like literally like $3 to $5 million a year, just one client. So wanted to share that with you guys. Okay. Kenneth says, what's the best thing to do here? one times ad set budget with a $45 budget, or three times ad set with a $15 budget, all the same interest and lookalikes. So you're going to do three different creatives in that case, Kenneth. Here's the deal, okay, Kenneth? I know everybody says that more variations are better, and I used to do that for a lot of years. And it wasn't until I found this guy, his name's Brad Campbell. I had a business called Brad's Ads. And him and I had a similar experience where running a whole bunch of ads, the ads are mostly performing terribly, or a bunch of mediocre ads, and you're testing all these things. And instead what he focused on is having one great ad, one great offer, and then going all in on that offer. And I think in the stage you're in, which is anywhere like under $300 to maybe even $1,000 a day on Facebook ads, like don't try 8,000 variations. Focus on less but better, less but better. Maybe one or two or maybe even three split tests total. But if you just got like a little $10, $15 budget, split testing a bunch of mediocre ads is not going to make it perform better. Like, we forget that these are tools to connect with people. And I always say psychology before technology. And almost always what people will do is test the technology instead of the psychology. Derek, this is not a one-size-fits-all answer. I answer this for a lot of people inside the mastermind. There's two things to consider. One of those is, where do these people hang out already, right? Like if you're trying to reach people that mostly operate and exist in the real world, like when we used to deal a lot with plastic surgeons, yes, you can reach them with a Facebook ad. Yes, you can reach them by email, but we actually had our best success just going to the conferences where they are, shaking their hand, talking to them face to face because they were real world people. If I'm trying to reach people that do e-commerce, they're probably going to be hanging out in a Facebook group, right? So you want to go where they are already. I can't say that enough. And then you got to make an offer to those people in a way that's like irresistible and congruent with what they want. So there's no one size fits all answer. I'll tell you with our market, my favorite thing to do right now is direct mail. It stands out from the noise. People rarely ever get personalized direct mail that's not junk mail. So many good things about that. But again, we want to not think about it as the success being the media. I get way too many people who think it's whether they do it on LinkedIn or whether they do it. It's the same people you're trying to reach on any platform. So psychology before technology. Make them a meaningful offer. Figure out where they are. Get in front of them, and you'll be able to get clients with regularity and consistency. Banu says, hey guys, what's going on? I have a question about how to do social prospecting, because in the past, whenever I did that, as a result, I was blocked, abused, or considered as every second a fraud, which makes them uncomfortable. I want to know what can be an easy method to connect with prospects on social media and how to engage with them to drive traffic on the offer. Banu, this is something I kind of wrote about indirectly on a post earlier this week. It was a really short one, and it just said something. The higher up I go in the success ladder, I see people working on building relationships with the right strategic partner. When I see people like, struggling and trying really hard and just being unsuccessful at it, often the ones who work the hardest, trying to break through, almost always they're looking for the magic message or the magic script or the secret set of words that'll unlock the credit cards and the wallets. And in my experience, there are none. So when you're reaching out to people, what almost always people will say, which I call total bullshit on, oh, it's a numbers game. And I'll tell you, one like really well-written, carefully crafted message to somebody that's like, a strategic alliance or a power partner in your niche can do more for you than thousands of just untargeted buy my shit kind of messages. And almost always when people ask these kind of questions, there's a volume amount of like buy my shit kind of messages that are coming with it. And so the simple method is like, there's a couple of things. If you were trying to connect with somebody in real life and start a relationship, almost always you would start the conversation about them and what they're doing, right? So like, I do a tiny bit of outreach, but it's very focused and very strategic. And I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, it's about something they just said, a post they just made, what they're up to, what I noticed they were doing. It's very rarely like, hey, quick question for you. If I could bring you 17 appointments in the next 5 minutes, it's almost like, hey, dude, I saw you post about NFTs and I totally fucking agree. I don't think most people have figured this out. Like, what are you guys buying right now? Oh, cool. What else do you do? I see you got this agency over here. Actually, maybe we should connect because I'm just noticing we have a lot of the same audience. Would you be down to connect? And you'd be amazed at like the things that come out of just talking to people in real life. So you want to think about this. Like, if you were face-to-face selling with these people in the real world, what would you do? Would you walk up and go, hey, quick question for you. Can I get you 17 appointments by tomorrow? Or would you say, hey, nice to meet you. I see you do India or Bangladesh. Part of the challenge is we marketers have this, but if you're in India, you have it even worse, which is you've inherited a reputation where like you're all scammers and you're all bad, and so you may have to work harder on the risk reversal part of it, like a first date where you can pay me after it's been successful kind of thing, and make that first date small, like a day or two kind of thing. But you do that, and what you'll find is you'll get people to buy your offer. Subhashish. Hi everyone. Whenever I send cold DMs, I don't get replies, even when I send DMs who are active on the platform. What can be done? Subhashish, I feel like this is a little bit of an echo, but start talking about them. Start connecting with people and I'll tell you, I can send 3 direct mail messages and score 2 clients, and I have people who send 1,000 messages to get 40 appointments to get 2 sales. And which would you rather do? Would you rather send 3 just well-written, personalized messages, or would you rather send thousands, do 40 sales calls and get 2, or would you rather just send 3 letters and get 2? So much of that is treating people like people, having something specific and meaningful and that's well thought out. Like, usually if I'm reaching out to somebody, I'm like, hey, I've thought about you as the perfect person for this, and here's why I think you would be the perfect person. Would you be open to doing this low-risk kind of thing where we could try it out together? You do that, and what you'll find is your messages land home a lot more frequently. Does that mean I never strike out? On the contrary, I strike out all the time. But having said that, if you're striking out, if you send 10 messages and you strike out, that should tell you alone that your messaging is off, or that you're not thinking strategically enough about who you're trying to connect with. So I hope that helps you, Subhashish. Nicholas, my man, Nikki Two Angels. If you are working for a revenue share, what do you use to hold the client accountable to pay you for the work you do? What tools do you use to be able to keep track of the clients, customers, or patients you bring them? Nikki Two Angels, I do this simpler than most people. Like, when most people do revenue share and things like that, they have fancy tracking systems. What I like to do is really, really simple, is create an offer where the only reason they could come in is because of you. So like a simple example, Christian's in our mastermind. He's ran birthday campaigns for a restaurant, and you come in for your birthday, you get a free appetizer. That person comes in with a whole bunch of people. Now, if that person comes in for their birthday and says, I want a free appetizer, they only could have came from you, right? So it makes it pretty easy to track when you have a specific offer. Now, as far as the other part is, how do you get them to be honest? Well, the truth is, if you do this, you never know which clients are going to be honest, especially if you're dealing with like brick and mortar, and which ones will be transparent, which is why I said at the beginning of this, and you may have missed it, is the investor mindset is so fucking important, right? Everybody approaches this like a service provider, but when you get into revenue share deals, you want to approach it much more like an investor. And what an investor will do is micro invest, as in invest a little bit to see if there's upside in it. So like, you think this one investment could 10x and you could be worth 10,000. It has very, very big upside if it works. Well, before you go and invest the full $1,000, it might make sense to just put 10 or 20 or $30 on it, and then see how that 10 or 20 or $30 performs before you then like commit to more. And so this is how you want to approach revenue share deals. Is think about a little campaign that you could run for a client in 24 to 48 hours that's done on revenue share, where you can know they're going to be honest and transparent with you. And what will happen is, if you do that twice, one of those clients won't pay you, or they'll disappear, or they won't be transparent. You just don't work with them more. You just don't run more. It takes you a day or two to find that out. And if you do it with the other one, you'll find the other one is honest and transparent. And then, of course, you may be able to have, like I said, we're working on a revenue share deal right now that could be worth like, 3 to 5 million for one single client, right? So when you understand that, Is that worth testing? Like, so in our case, we're testing with $100 in a direct mail campaign, and we know if it works out, the client's going to be worth $3 to $5 million. If we're wrong, I lose a couple of days and I lose, a couple $100, maybe like $100 to $200 in this case. So that's how you do it, is you manage risk by testing the clients before you commit big to them. We forget in this, we're choosing the clients every bit as much as they're choosing us. And so we need to test them and vet them and make sure they're the right people. Like, we don't want to ever just settle for any client that can come in the door. That's the fastest way to build a pain-in-the-ass agency full of pain-in-the-ass clients who don't pay you and make your life miserable. We want to be intentional and choose the types of clients that we want to work with, and you do that by testing small and seeing whether they're the right fit for you. Serge says, how much volume of outreach does it take you guys to get 5 to 10 meetings per week? Serge, I'm a bad person to ask, because I'll tell you, meetings is a shitty metric, in my opinion. I'll tell you, because I had an experience a couple of years ago where we had 40 hours of meetings booked, and I hadn't yet hired a salesperson in the agency, so I was like literally the only one doing the sales calls. So like I had 40 hours a week of sales calls, and this is when we were still living in Germany. And what nobody tells you about sales call is there's a wide range of sales calls. There's a lot of people who get on because they're mildly curious, and they might be 2 or 3 out of 10 on the idea of working with you. And there's a bunch of people who every now and then you get somebody who's an 8 or a 9 or 10 who's already looked into you, they already researched you, they already know what you are, they already know what it's about. And those sales calls tend to be more like question and answer, but they're more like slam dunks where they're pretty easy to close, if you will, because you've essentially come to the agreement. Now, I'll tell you, after having done this, we don't do appointments anymore. We don't even do sales calls. But if we did, I would only get on the phone with people. I would have tests to determine who's an 8, 9, 10. And anybody who's like a 2 or 3 or 4 or even really like less than a 7, I would say, like, go back into our funnel and learn more about us. But it's not the time for us to speak on the phone, because then you end up at these long 90-minute sales convincing conversations. Now, having said that, in your question is how much volume of outreach does it take you to get 5 or 10 meetings? Why do you want meetings? Because you want sales. So focus on that as the key metric. Most people are going to get 5 to 10 meetings in order to get 2 or 3 sales. So what I would suggest is, how can you get to 2 or 3 sales are the quickest? And how I do this personally is I think about the clients I most want to work with. I reach out to them directly. I make them a pretty irresistible offer. I'm big on using direct mail. Sometimes I will close like 2 or 3 people on a mailing of 5 people, right? But they're very well thought out, they're very personalized and things like that. So you don't have to, this doesn't have to be a volume game. I don't know why everybody wants it to be a volume game. Volume just like creates all this unnecessary work for you. If you want to have a lifestyle agency, think about being more effective before you just like throw volume at it, right? Like you want to automate 2 to 3 sales, which is probably what you're after. You can do that with like 5 letters a group that mainly sell SEO. How do you... Ooh, Dylan, this is I feel for you, because when I first got into selling SEO, it started actually as a relatively in-demand service. Believe it or not, there weren't a ton of SEO people. This was back in 2007, and believe it or not, people were looking for me. And by even just like 2 years into it, it had totally flip-flopped, and there must have been hundreds and thousands of people pitching SEO every day, and it got hard all of a sudden. I can remember actually when it got hard. I'll tell you, my favorite way to sell SEO is face-to-face, in person. If you can meet people at a conference, that is method number 1 that will always work the best. If that's not on the table for you, direct mail. But I'll tell you, where most people really screw up SEO is really, really simple, is they just have an SEO offer that's really fucking hard to say yes to. And what a really hard to say yes to SEO offer, which I used to have one, is work with me for a year, pay me thousands of dollars every month, and then hopefully at the end I'll get you number 1. I've helped a lot of other people to get to number 1, but no guarantees, because Google's crazy. That's a hard to say yes to offer if they don't know you, if they don't trust you, if they don't have some kind of working relationship. So the best thing you can do in SEO is just shrink the size of an intro offer. And what I would do if I was still selling SEO is I would pick one very valuable keyword based on one very valuable service that they offer. So like in the case of plastic surgeons, that was like mommy makeovers or nose jobs or facelifts, when like women have the whole like facelift thing. I would take one of those 3 keywords. and I would find somebody who's like close to ranking but not ranking, and find an opportunity to get them number one for that keyword. And then I would say, hey, let's work together for 30 days because I know I can get you number one or up there. I can get you phone calls for this one keyword. And if you like it, we can talk about doing more. But if you don't, we don't have to. And I would make them an offer for just one little teeny tiny intro offer. And what you'll find is if you can do that and you can deliver, you'll have all the clients you ever need. So usually the biggest reason people have a hard time selling SEO is because it's a big offer, it's hairy, it's messy, it's a marriage offer, right? And if you create a first date version of that that's easy to say yes to, you'll get a lot more SEO deals as a general rule. Especially if you can deliver on it, by the way, because if you can deliver on it, like most of those people are going to be happy, they're going to be ranked, they're going to want more from you. And oftentimes they'll be the ones asking. They'll go, holy shit, we're number one for this keyword, or we're number two. We're getting phone calls for mommy makeovers. Can we do more? Yes, we can do more. Okay, Paul says, I've got 3 Audible credits. Give me some good audiobooks to listen to. I'm particularly interested in learning how to be a better salesman/agency owner. Well, I'll give you a shameless plug for my book, Paul, for Beyond the Agency Box, although I think you've read it already. So even if you haven't, I'll tell you, there's a couple of books that are different than what most people think about in terms of like selling and growing agency. One of those is Essentialism by Greg Mcewen. And the whole idea of the book is he goes into the importance of less but better, less moving pieces but better quality things. Like, I'm sure you guys have all been to a restaurant where they have 100 things on the menu and the whole thing's mediocre. And then I'm sure you've been to a restaurant that just makes like tacos, but they make the best tacos in 5 counties. All things considered, you want to be the taco place in your industry, not the we make 100 things poorly kind of restaurant. And so, that's the whole idea behind Essentialism. I would suggest you check that out. If you're looking at sales specifically, where most people, what they think is stopping them is salesmanship and persuasion, but it's actually just their offer sucks. So I would check out $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi. Obviously, our book talks a little bit about this as well, because it's the price, and then you wanted to sell them for 150, and you had Grant Cardone selling them, or somebody who's like whoever you consider to be a great salesperson. Or you could get the cards for $20 a piece, and you could sell them for 50, and you could prove that they were real and legit, and you could just only have your grandma sell them with no salesmanship skills whatsoever. Well, believe it or not, if you could validate and prove it to people, it would be way easier to sell $50 gift cards with grandma, because it's inherently more valuable than having Grant Cardone's amazing salesmanship. So what most people think is a sales problem is really an offer problem in disguise. And if you get good at the offer making, the sales will just flow out of that. Having said that, Neil Rackham's spin selling is also another good one. It's all about like doctor frame kind of selling. You do that, you can sell ethically, and you can get people to understand the value you're creating. Part of why we struggle to sell what we do as agency owners is because a lot of what we do is intangible. Like, for example, if you're selling a phone, it's a physical thing, right? So people can see it, they can touch it, they know what they're buying. But selling like an investment, it's much harder, right? It's a much more intangible thing. It has like a future gain, reasons for it now. Agency owner work falls into that. Most of the services we sell are intangible, and Neil Rackham's spin selling is really good for selling high-ticket intangible things. And so I would suggest checking out those couple of books that I just mentioned. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got for you guys right now. If you guys are interested, by the way, in some investment stuff, I'll give you a couple little pro tips as all this inflation is happening. Gold, silver, and Bitcoin. Those 3 things, by the way, tend to go up in value. So what most people do is they store their money in a bank account, and then they suddenly find, holy shit, gas prices are up and my money has fallen. If you store it in gold, silver, and Bitcoin, what you'll find is your money, as a general rule, although there's lots of ups and downs, will go up in value over time, and you'll be able to hold more cash. So like personally, like I try never to leave more than like $1,000 or $2,000 in my bank account, just money to be able to use to like buy everyday things, and then the rest of it I try to invest it all. Having said that, if you guys are interested in hearing more about that, we talk a lot about that in the mastermind. I've got some documents, you can see all the things we're investing in and buying in, and if you're interested in that, reach out. We got a couple, maybe like 2 spots left. I have to check exactly, but give a brother a holler, and you won't be feeling the gas prices so much, along with many other benefits. So that's all I got for you guys today. Much love to you guys, and may the force be with you.